Okay, folks, we'll get this started. Good morning, everyone. This is another one of the NJ GMIS Coffees with NJ GMIS. This morning, we're going to hear from Nutanix. Anthony Branton and Paul Wozniak are going to be providing a presentation on the Nutanix technology. They'll cover areas from the Nutanix hypervisor. I know many of us struggled and maybe didn't struggle with the Broadcom takeover of VMware and their raising of the prices for the VMware products. And Nutanix was an alternative to that that some folks may have considered. And they're going to speak to everything from the technology of Nutanix, which is a good product, and they're going to cover cybersecurity, ransomware, and then towards the end of this presentation, there'll be a Q&A with a fellow, Michael Estrada, who's also an NJGMIS member. And with that, let me turn this over to Paul and Anthony to get us started. And welcome to another NJGMIS coffee event. And if you're not a member, I'd encourage you to become a member of NJGMIS. It's a great organization. As you'll learn today, we get involved with the technology from A to Z as far as IT is concerned. So it may be something you want to consider, and some of your insight, et cetera, that you could offer to the to New Jersey in general. With that, let me turn it over to Paul and Anthony, who will provide the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate that introduction. Paul, can everybody see my screen? Excellent. Okay, all right. Well, so thank you everybody for joining us today. And just to reiterate what John had said in his introduction, thank you to the NJGMIS team for allowing us to contribute to these wonderful Coffee with GMIS sessions, where vendors get the opportunity to spend time with members directly and to present on solutions that are really driving IT transformation in the public sector. We hope you find our demonstration and the overall session today to be one of value and educational. So with that, I'll briefly go over the agenda and kind of how we're breaking things down. So I'm going to go through this introduction, both of the team that's joining you today, and a background on our company and very high level on the product. I'll pass it over to my colleague Paul, who will perform the Nutanix AHV platform demonstration. After that, for all our school friends and any townships that are managing their libraries, we're going to touch on E-rate and how you can take advantage of Category 2 federal funding dollars there. And then we're going to wrap it up with about a 30-minute Q&A where we're going to incorporate one of our customers to give his personal testimonial on the Nutanix platform, how it's operated in production in a large K-12 institution, and how his experience working with PBG has been throughout the years as well. A couple of key takeaways for the session that we've identified, we hope you'll keep in mind today as we talk through the solution. And I want to state this is not only some expectation as an alternative choice to VMware, but if you're running other platforms as well, these are areas you definitely want to consider to the advantages of Nutanix to your existing environment system as well. So flexibility and value, we're going to touch on the advantages of the licensing components of Nutanix, along with that flexibility of the no vendor lock-in. So it gives you various choices between hypervisors, clouds, and various hardware options. Security hardened. We're really going to be speaking on the strengths of Nutanix and their security posturing out of the box. Nutanix had their foundations with the Department of Defense, and so we can say with some certainty that they're most definitely going to meet and surpass any cybersecurity insurance, compliance, and regulatory standards that may be in addition to the security procedures and solutions they may already have in place. And then lastly, streamlined and intuitive. Nutanix understands the difficulty and cost and resource that it can be to change such large systems that are operating your strategic and critical workloads. but with built-in migration tools and the ability to migrate with minimal or no downtime, VMware customers, Hyper-V customers, VxRail customers can feel confident that when you move workloads to Nutanix, there's going to be very little disruption, and there will be a load of resources, not only from the organization themselves, but us as well from a support perspective, that's going to make sure that you're trained and ready to take on the management of a new system. So that brings us to our team for today, plus Mike. So starting from our left to right, we have Scott Brusso. Scott's been our CTO for just over 30 years now, beginning his career and background with the federal government and the Department of Defense. So he thoroughly understands the requirements of public sector departments, where he spent his time building advanced, highly secure network environments. Scott was an early adopter of the Nutanix HCI technology and was responsible actually for deploying the first production cluster in the state of New Jersey back in 2011 and 12. To his right, we have Paul Wozniak, and Paul is our Director of Professional Services and one of our senior engineers. Paul has been with PBG for just over a decade now, where he's maintained multiple certifications across technology disciplines and brings a wealth of hands-on experience architecting, migrating, and deploying both data center and networking systems. As I mentioned, Paul will be the one providing the Nutanix demo here for you shortly. And then there's myself. I'm Anthony Branton. I'm an account executive here at PBG, and my primary responsibility is for the organization's business development efforts and net new client acquisition. And then lastly, on the caboose there, which some of you I'm sure know, is Mike Estrada. Mike is the current CTO of South Plainfield School District and an active participant for the New Jersey Education and Technology Association, where he holds a committee member designation for their network and infrastructure and cybersecurity subcommittee. Mike's been a long time client of PBG Networks and an early adopter of the Nutanix and HCI technology. And this past summer, Mike actually refreshed his Nutanix environment with us for the third time. We've just wrapped up that project, and he'll be able to speak on not only that most recent experience, but the experience working alongside us for many years. So that brings it to the organization's background. So PBG Networks, who are we? So you may have heard of us through some colleagues, or maybe we had the opportunity to meet briefly at this most recent GMIS Tech in April. But if not, I'm just going to go through a quick company background. So we are a regional managed service provider based out of Southern New Jersey in the Winona area. And we've been in operation as a proud women's-led organization since our inception in 1996. Our specialization lies in enterprise IT solutions and infrastructure services across multiple disciplines in data center, networking, and cybersecurity. Our methodology and approach has always centered around client-driven priorities and the initiatives that align with your department expectations and the best practices in public sector IT governance. So as a leading regional partner, our portfolio consists of multiple best-of-breed solutions across networking, security, power, DR, and virtualization, of course, all of which generally have been thoroughly vetted through us, more often than not are operating in our environment long before we position them as a solution to you. And then lastly here, I'm just going to touch on Nutanix as a product, which we'll be diving into here momentarily. A little bit of background there. Nutanix was founded in 2009 by a few ex-Google engineers and developers, and very quickly rose to be a global leader in the hybrid multi-cloud and virtualization space. And that's due to the fact that they actually pioneered and invented the HCI framework. So if you haven't been officially introduced to HCI prior to today, to put it simply, HCI integrates compute, storage, networking, and virtualization into a single software-defined platform. As of actually this last fiscal quarter announcement, their current global customer base is just over 30,000. So they're obtaining new organizations every day. And that's because Nutanix has rapidly established themselves as a major competitor and a preferred choice vendor across multiple industries such as government, education, healthcare, banking, and more. And for multiple years in a row now has been recognized as a Gartner's Magic Quadrant leader. So they're in very good company. And then last but not least, the NPS score, which I don't know if any of you know what NPS stands for. It's actually the Net Promoter Score. And the NPS score is a benchmark used to measure customer satisfaction across various interactions and the likelihood to recommend the solution to somebody else. So if you went and Googled, the NPS score of some of those competitors that they're in that leader quadrant with, Oracle, AWS, Broadcom, Microsoft, you will quickly realize it's no wonder that Nutanix has truly separated themselves from those primary competitors, and which has led them to be the #1 alternative to the VMwares, Hyper-Vs, and VxRails of the world. So, okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it along to Paul, who can dive right into the demo.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Anthony. Talking about it is one thing. Why don't we see a little bit of what that HCI means? I'm going to play just a very brief video here. This goes slightly older video, but it does give you a visual of what we're talking about with HCI. What does it really mean? Well, unique thing that Nutanix did is they got rid of the SAN. So you don't have that single point of failure for storage. They also allowed the use of mixed drive types, which is something we'll highlight again a little bit later. So all that storage sits in the front of the block. And what you're looking at here in the back are the nodes. The nodes hold all the compute, so CPU, memory, the network adapters. That's also where the hypervisor lives, and your power supplies. This is unique because it allows a very small form factor for Nutanix. We had a number of examples where clients saved on power cost, on cooling cost, and on rack space by being able to consolidate half a rack, even multiple racks of equipment down to just a few U of space. So while that is a nice fringe benefit, you'll notice as we look through that chassis, there was no RAID controller in there. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But to help ground you a little bit into Nutanix and the terms that we're talking about here, nodes, blocks, we refer to that as block is the chassis, what you just saw sitting physically in the rack, and a node is the hosts. So whether you're running ESXi as your hypervisor, maybe you're running Hyper-V, maybe you're running Nutanix's own hypervisor, the Acropolis hypervisor, AHV, those would sit on that node sitting in the back. So just to make those two terms clear. Prism is another term to be aware of. Prism Central is what you're looking at right now at my screen. For those of you who are VMware customers, think of Prism Central like vCenter. You can equate that in your mind. What you're looking at here on this home dashboard is two clusters that Prism Central is managing. We have what's called a server cluster and an objects cluster. Nutanix can do a lot more than just running virtual machines. It's something that we're not going to get into everything on this demo, but I will touch on some of those subjects. Just to preface as well, while I am the Director of Professional Services, I come from a systems engineering background here at PBG. So while we will try to keep this fairly high level for time purposes today, this is more or less a walkthrough I would give to you if you had to come and step in my shoes to manage a Nutanix platform and you had no prior knowledge of what Nutanix is and what it does. So Prism is the web interface that you use to interact with Nutanix. And it actually comes in two flavors. Prism Central is designed, as you can see here, to manage multiple clusters. Maybe we have a production server cluster. Maybe we have a disaster recovery cluster. Maybe I'm a bank and I have some robo nodes, which are single nodes running at the edge just to serve a few virtual machines. And maybe I have a storage cluster for my camera storage if I'm a township and I want to use those S3, that's the Amazon protocol for object storage. All that can be managed centrally through Prism Central. But each cluster as well has its own Prism web interface. And if we switch over to this cluster view, you can see that your dashboard is a little more VM-centric, or showing you what the workloads are specific on that cluster. So you can see on this cluster in particular, we are running the Acropolis hypervisor. And while we are connected to Prism Central, we have our own web interface. This is called Prism Element. We can see our storage here as well to get a snapshot of where our total capacity is and how much room we have to grow. The number of workloads we're running for VMs, and again, that summary of host and blocks. So you notice we have two clusters here. This one is actually running 4 hosts, on a single block. You can also see what's going on with compute and health and alerts. So you get a really nice snapshot if you want to log in and see, am I going to have a good day? Do I need to do anything else with what's going on here? The most common use case for Nutanix is to run virtual machines, right? That's what a lot of clients are using Nutanix, that HCI. They migrate from legacy platforms or a SAN environment. So let's dive right into what that looks like. The biggest change for customers that are coming from maybe VMware is I'm used to seeing my VMs on the left and I'm seeing all that summary on the right. With Nutanix, we flip that and we see all the VMs on a horizontal view across the top, and then I can come down and see more information at the bottom. What we found that we like about this is we actually have more horizontal screen real estate to see more information about the virtual machine. So I can come down here. I had a use case where a client had a memory leak. Before having to console into the virtual machine, I could see the memory usage slowly growing, spike, and crash, and repeat across this chart. Easy diagnosis right here. I can see a lot of information about virtual disks, including their total capacity, their logical usage, their read latency, their write IOPS, and the same thing on the virtual NICs. So I get a lot of information about this machine right here from this plain simple view. There are obviously more analytics that you can dive into through Prism. But the point is that you can really get a lot of information at your fingertips here, including consoling into the machine. Being able to manage AHV and the VMs running on AHV is a very simple lift for those who are used to hypervisors like Hyper-V or ESXi. You have your list of your VMs, you can right click, you can update your virtual machines. One nice feature I like to highlight in AHV, you can hot add virtual CPU and memory to a VM without having to power it off. So it does make it convenient if you have to increase those resources in a pinch. Another highlight that I like to always share is snapshots. Here's a average size VM. It's 120 gigs. It's got about 40 gigs free. It is powered up. It is running. Depending on the size and how many disks you have attached to your VM, taking a snapshot could take a few moments, a few minutes, sometimes even longer. Let's try taking a snapshot here, and you'll see I'm on the VM snapshot tab. There are currently no snapshots for this machine. I can simply right-click on the virtual machine, type in a name, hit submit, and the snapshot is done. And just as easy, I can come down here and I can click delete and remove that snapshot. So certainly performance, speed, no question when it comes to Nutanix. We like to call that the Ferrari of the virtualization world. Performance and scalability are really two of the hallmarks, but also resiliency. So we'll get into the resiliency in just a second. But before I move into that, I want to highlight something special for snapshotting. Over in Prism Central, you can view VMs across multiple clusters. So you can see the view here is a little bit more expansive than if you're looking at workloads just on a single cluster. But coming down into that virtual machine, you can see a lot of the same information. You can obviously launch a console or see the console embedded inside the view. But if I come back here to my main VM view, at the top here, you see I have a snapshot usage. And what I can do here is sort by this column and get a quick view of all my virtual machines, the size of their snapshot, and sort it from largest to smallest. Makes it super simple for me to be able to come in here and quickly get a view of my environment. I don't have to run something third party to get a look at that. So how do you interact with the Nutanix cluster beyond this? You notice there's a main menu here. We jumped right into virtual machines. Just to backtrack for a second into health, this is something that we really like because it empowers customers to get a better understanding of the health of their environment. Not only do they get historical views on what's going on, but they can also get links to knowledge base articles from Nutanix to get a better understanding of what's going on with their health. So it really does a great job. There's a lot of self-healing capability into that, and that really plays into the storage, which is what I wanted to highlight here. You notice that we have both spindle disk hard drives and SSDs mixed in here, but they are part of a single container. So this container right here uses SSDs and hard drives and houses all the virtual machine workloads on this cluster. Again, Nutanix does not use RAID. You saw that in that little video diagram. There's no hardware RAID controller in there. Instead, it uses something called replication factor. The benefits to replication factor are faster rebuilds in the event of a drive failure and performance, among other things. You notice on this storage container, we only have the compression enabled, and that's really all we need, along with replication factor 2. There are abilities to run cache deduplication, capacity deduplication, and erasure coding, but those are really meant for specific type of workloads. In a mixed workload environment with VMs like what we're running, compression does a fantastic job of being able to save you a lot of space. Self-healing is one thing that I really want to highlight here. That's something that makes Nutanix stand aside, and it ties into all the magic that they have happening on the storage. We have a lot of clients that may be concerned because they don't have good power, or maybe they're concerned they don't have high availability when it comes to their network. Nutanix offers a lot of protection between that RF2 and what they call as the Distributed Storage Fabric, DSF. They have write acknowledgement, which means every write IO is synchronously written to 2 nodes if you're running RF2, 3 if you're running RF3, and then acknowledge back to the guest operating system. There's also a quorum that has metadata protection using internal node to node communication. And the self-healing provides graceful handling of power failures to protect against dirty writes. And of course, with that snapshotting I just showed you, just like there's VMware guest tools, Nutanix guest tools provides the option for application-aware snapshots. So a lot of times we have a customer that maybe had an event that disrupted their cluster, their rack. By the time we come in, everything is already up and running. It is self-healed. It is very resilient and something that we trust to run our own environment. Another benefit when it comes to managing this cluster, I'm going to skip down to the lifecycle management. And this is unique and also something that we come to really appreciate. As opposed to running one hypervisor on your cluster in your environment, running that on top of some other OEM hardware, common platforms I'm sure you're running even as bare metal servers in your environment. Here in LCM, we can see both the software and the hardware all in one view. So on this cluster, I can see all my installed software versions, including my operating system. That's what Nutanix is. If you purchase Nutanix, it is software. They are a software-only company. So I wanted to highlight that here to say that you have your choice of what hardware you want to run Nutanix on. Dell, Lenovo, Fujitsu, HP, Supermicro. We recommend running the Supermicro series because that's what Nutanix used to sell. Now they only provide it as a pass-through, which means you get the lowest cost. You also get a single vendor to call for support because you don't have to call a third-party vendor who owns that hardware and then raise a support ticket that then comes back to Nutanix. Everything goes right through Nutanix for software and hardware support. And in our experience, we have more Nutanix customers in the local government and education vertical in this region than anyone else. I can count on one hand how many times I've had to handle any kind of hardware issues. It was usually something like a Samsung memory module or a hard drive that's been spinning for 8 years and one of them needs to be replaced. So we can definitely attest to the reliability of that hardware. But AOS is that operating system that runs on that hardware of your choice. And then on top of that operating system, we're running a hypervisor. So that's AHV in this case, and all the other software. Likewise, BIOS, BMC, drivers, NICs, all that hardware and firmware, all visible in one spot. So that means I can inventory and come in and do updates from a single place. I don't have to jump between some out-of-band management view to update that software and its BIOS and its firmware. And this makes it very convenient to do the same from Prism Central when I have multiple clusters. So that's something we definitely appreciate when it comes to being able to manage this cluster, manage the virtual machines, manage the storage all in one convenient location. So that covers some of the basics, and that covers some of the management that you would need to know at a basic level about Nutanix. I want to take a few minutes to also speak about some of the advanced capabilities, the most common features our customers start using when they migrate their VM workloads, and they ask us, what else can the box do? Well, there is a lot. I'm going to highlight 3 or 4 in particular. Files. Nutanix Files is probably the first and most common use of advanced features from Nutanix. And what is that? Well, it replaces your legacy 90s technology of a Windows file server. I know a lot of organizations may be using cloud storage, whether it's Google Drive for schools or OneDrive for businesses and townships, and that's great. But there is sometimes still a need for on-prem files when it comes to either security or just having that lower latency working with larger files. So Nutanix Files replaces that single Windows server VM and instead gives you 3 highly available Linux virtual machines. So we eliminate Windows vulnerability. We also eliminate a single point of failure. So if you ever had to wait to apply updates or do maintenance on a single Windows share because someone is using it and you can't reboot it, that pain point is gone. You can now do rolling upgrades during production hours without causing a disruption. Nutanix Files also offers more capabilities and more security than what a Windows file server would provide you. Obviously, here you can see from the monitoring view some performance metrics on my shares and also performance metrics on the virtual machines, the file server VMs themselves. We are running 2 shares in this example. And you notice while I can add a quota policy to those shares, hard and soft limits at the individual and user group level, I can also make more edits to that share and enforce either a maximum size at the share level. I can enable self-service restore, which is great to offload that capability to your users. If you have to answer a support ticket to restore a file folder that your user accidentally deleted, they can now do that self-service right inside their share. You can also
interrupt for a second. You're providing a lot of technical information. I would just suggest that we take a time out periodically for questions. The audience may have some questions, so that's why I raised my hand, just to say, we need a couple interruptions here to provide the audience a chance to ask some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes, please
You're
ask away. What questions do we have that would love to talk about?
I know something I was actually going to ask once you guys were in Files here was, I know there's that capability of Files to be able to, I think you guys do it for a lot of clients, right? They're migrating their stuff from a Windows store to here, and you're actually catching stuff that's been dormant malware or dormant, adware, stuff that's just been sitting in the background. Can you go over a little bit about what you've seen with that in clients?
Absolutely. You bring up a good question, and that was actually my next point, which is the analytics and the ransomware protection.
I figured I might be beating you there.
Yes, absolutely. So there's actually 2 ways to look at this. The files provide you the ability to separate your network. So your users right now, if they're managing anything or accessing your Windows shares, they're probably touching that same network infrastructure where that server lives. Let's separate that, which is what we do with Nutanix Files. This diagram gives you a visual to see those 3 file server VMs sitting on top of our storage container on this cluster. And we have an external network that allows users to connect to files without touching the storage. No touching my infrastructure for security reasons. But that's just one passive way Nutanix adds protection for you. What you're referencing here is actually found in File Analytics. So Nutanix Files Analytics, what is that? It's a virtual machine. It's also free. It's included with Nutanix operating system, just like Nutanix Files is free included with the Nutanix operating system. File Analytics gives you visibility and protection on your file shares. So what you're looking at here is this dashboard that dives into what your capacity trends are, as well as some top offenders, for example, my permission denials, my top active users. What about file distribution by size? I want to see what my file sizes are distributed across the cluster, and file distribution by type. One particular area of this view has helped users. Why is this one user taking up so much space on my file server? Come in here, you can see, hey, why is there a lot of MP3 files here? We shouldn't have that on. Let's block those file shares from accepting MP3s. And file operations dives into what you mentioned, Mike, with the protection. So file analytics allows you to have anomaly detection. What we can do here is set up a way to see events happening on the file share. So for example, reads and writes, we can configure this at the individual or user group level. Where this is practical, I will share an example for you. We had a client that took 18 Windows file shares. They were running across 12 Windows virtual machines, consolidated to one instance of Nutanix Files. On a Friday afternoon, the network admin called me in a panic because Nutanix Files detected ransomware. Oh no. So we jumped in and we found, oh, it was actually a really old share from the year 2001, and it was running .pants and had .pants.xxx file signatures, and those were listed here in the ransomware detection as signatures that should not be written to your file server. Automatically jumped in and blocked that for you. So that is a capability that Nutanix Files and Analytics gives you for free out of the box. And one other one I'll highlight before I move on from here is the audit trails. So for those of us that maybe need to find out who made a change, what happened, and where, I can drill down per file, folder, user, and client IP address to be able to see historical information on that. I can select a date range, filter by operation, and come down and see what user from what IP address made what operation at what timestamp. So this provides a lot of visibility that you may not have currently to be able to drill down into your file servers. Before I move on,
you're reading my mind on that one, Paul. I was
yes.
like, I was going to jump in because that's where I think I reached out to you guys specifically for that type of thing, because you couldn't find that granularity within some of the other server infrastructures, but it was inherently built right here.
Yes, and again, I want to emphasize that this is free. So if you run AOS, that's Nutanix, you run the Acropolis hypervisor, you get what you're looking at here, Files and Analytics, for free. Before I move on, John, were there any other questions, or if anyone in the audience had any questions about Nutanix Files and Analytics or anything else I discussed at this point?
Yeah, if anybody has a question, raise your hand and we'll put you in a queue. We'll allow you to answer your question.
Awesome. So two other things while I wait for that to highlight would be microsegmentation and disaster recovery. So microsegmentation, for those who may not be familiar with that concept, if you understand how a firewall works, you're already most of the way there. Microsegmentation provides software-defined networking, the ability to granularly control data flowing in and out of the Nutanix cluster, but more critically, between the virtual machines. So if you look at this snapshot I have here, you can see these blue lines showing traffic flowing in and out, but you see a lot of them looping back on each other. Do you know how your virtual machines and traffic are talking to each other? Do you know if this traffic should be talking to maybe your financial server? If you don't have microsegmentation on your cluster, you likely have limited visibility into that. Nutanix Flow microsegmentation provide you this view and this capability to really granularly secure by application, by IP address, by virtual machines, by services, how traffic should flow, hence the name. A lot of our clients have commented to us that started using this, two things. One, hey, this is actually pretty easy. I've looked at other microsegmentation products. It was hard to wrap my head around. The view here made it easy to understand. And if I can understand it easily, I can more easily secure it, and I can apply more granular security. Also, we also had clients stop talking for a moment and see everything going on their cluster and say, yeah, this is not good. Let's restrict this. So we have the ability to set flow up in a monitor mode, and let's just stop and see what is going in and out, and let me then be able to fine tune and restrict what should be allowed to talk in and out of the cluster and between the virtual machines. And this is also for those who are in the educational environment on this webinar, and those townships who use libraries for E-rate. This also is a special highlight to you. Scott, we've been going on doing E-rate for 3 years now with Nutanix, is that right?
Yep, so that's correct. So we have done 100% of the E-rate here in New Jersey. So when we originally set this up 3 years ago, Nutanix chose us to assist them with the E-rate process. So we worked with them. They generated the SKUs. So just briefly, there's some specific requirements for schools and libraries who want to take advantage of the E-rate program. So you can't use things like VMware. So the first requirement is you have to use Nutanix's AHV hypervisor. So that is key. You also cannot put it on any hardware. So you have to put it specifically on Supermicro. And we believe USAC chose that because Supermicro is where Nutanix originally designed their product. It's the most flexible, easy, and it comes already set up right out of the box. And then the key component that makes this E-ratable is the Nutanix flow. And that's the microsegmentation piece that Paul was showing everybody, this firewalling capability. It has some incredible capabilities, like for instance, if you have a server that has ransomware detected on it, you can use Nutanix Flow to go in and you can quarantine that server. So that's a key capability that USAC really wanted schools to take advantage of, schools and libraries. And that's why Nutanix Flow is the chief E-ratable component. So the hardware and the AHV hypervisor, they're ancillary benefits. They are covered under E-rate, but they are just ancillary benefits of buying Nutanix Flow. So you need the AHV, and obviously you need the hardware to run Nutanix Flow on. And we have quite a few schools who have taken advantage of this, of the E-rate purchasing power for Nutanix. So if anybody needs any references, I can point you to them. The process was pretty easy and streamlined for many schools. And if there's any questions about the E-rate process, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can contact someone at PBG and they can put you in contact with me. That's pretty much all I have, Paul. You're welcome.
So if any townships do have their data center or DR environment in their library, those libraries is what qualifies for E-rate as well. And school districts, most are already very familiar with the E-rate process. There's one more thing I'm going to cover before moving on and turning from this demo. Are there any questions about Nutanix Flow and microsegmentation? No? Okay. So the last portion I did want to highlight is disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is something that is important. Cybersecurity insurance companies ask for it, but it's always something that is put towards the back of the line, especially when it comes to budget. So another great news is that disaster recovery is included with the AOS, Propolis operating system. Great. So I can take snapshots locally here on my cluster, and I can then replicate those snapshots to another cluster or robo node. And as you can see here, I have this cluster running a bunch of VMs, and there is a green dot not listed here for this virtual machine. Over at my other cluster, you can see that that VM is running on this cluster. If I come down to data protection, and there's a green dot right here. So I can either fail over this workload just as a test or as an exercise. But even if my source environment is gone, let's say this cluster went up in smoke, no worries. I can come over to my other cluster where the snapshots are being replicated to, and I can activate this workload and run that, restore it off this snapshot. Everything that I'm showing you here, the Acropolis hypervisor, which is the ability to run the VMs on this cluster, Nutanix Files, File Analytics, and Data Protection. These are all free software that comes with the Acropolis operating system. So when we come to clients and say, hey, you can drop your licensing cost for your hypervisor, we all know with the recent changes to VMware, those have really become a hot topic. If you're paying for a DR solution, it's built into the cluster, and you can increase the security on your servers, and it's all part of the same license. That really speaks to a lot of value.
Hey,
So
Paul,
this,
can I stop you for a second? Because someone had mentioned, someone had asked a question, how does Nutanix Files integrate with SentinelOne or CrowdStrike? So I can answer that briefly. So there is integration for both of those products. SentinelOne can be integrated using the ICAP capability, and CrowdStrike has more direct integration with Nutanix Files. So you can integrate, and I'd have to go back and look and see if there's a integrations list for other products as well, like Adlumin or other things out there like Microsoft products that could integrate with Nutanix Files. But yes, there is integration for them.
thank you for that. Yeah, this was actually great because this is my stopping point. You can see on my screen here in Nutanix Files, there's integration to ICAP servers for antivirus. So that's a great question. Nutanix is definitely leading the pack when it comes to what you can do with your file servers. So that finishes the demo portion that I wanted to jump into. I would like to also hand it over to Mike Estrada, because you don't have to just take it from me. Mike Estrada is a third generation Nutanix customer and has been working with PBG on their Nutanix for a number of years. Mike, could you speak a little bit about your experience?
Oh, of course, yeah, I'll go over that. But I
Mike,
do see that you
Do
still
we
have a
want to
question in the
answer another?
background here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excuse me, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Before we get into that, there was another question about disaster recovery. If the person that asked the question regarding disaster recovery wants to put that question up again, we'll ask Paul to provide an answer to
I
that.
can see it. I'll read it for them. So,
Okay.
Paul, the real Bill is asking, how does DR protection, this DR protection you went over, compare to traditional backup offsite cloud mutable solutions? And if a third-party backup solutions are different, what platforms do you guys recommend? Have you worked with work well with this?
Sure. So it's a multi-point question, so I'll answer a few different points. One, this is not a replacement for your backup solution. We still advocate for having an on-prem backup solution. You need to have on-prem backups that are or somewhere that is air-gapped. So your cybersecurity insurance companies are going to ask for that air-gap backup. We also advocate for using a dissimilar offsite or cloud backup solution so that not all of your backups are vulnerable to the same issue. So you don't have a single point of failure there. But all that is great for backups, and disaster recovery is great for disaster recovery. Two different solutions for two different issues. When it comes to disaster recovery in Nutanix, really the world's your oyster. This is designed not only for small environments, but also for really large environments that say, great, I have a primary cluster here. I have another DR cluster in a colo location. I'm renting rack space. And I also want to be able to scale up to the cloud because tomorrow I'm a large enterprise and my workloads will spike because my product became popular. All that is flexible options available with Nutanix. So we can do one-to-many disaster recovery replications. Also just ease of use. I think that's for clients that we work with, especially in the SLED vertical. A lot of times disaster recovery may be a bit of a add-on because of budgetary constraints, and the network administrator may not just have enough time to do a really robust job of their DR. Not that they can't, but you only have so much time in the day managing your environment in a township or a school district. So when we set up disaster recovery with Nutanix, a lot of times the feedback we get is, this is actually really simple. It's actually really easy for me to use, and it's also really quick. I can fail over a virtual machine from one cluster to another in just a few moments, or if that is disconnected, I can spin up that virtual machine in just a few moments on the other site with just a couple clicks. So it made it easy to start using it, which critically made it easy to start testing it, which is another thing cybersecurity insurance companies look for. Are great that you have a solution. Are you testing your DR? Are you testing your backups on a regular schedule? Yes, I can set up local snapshots with this data protection, and I can say, hey, here's an extra layer of backup, right? Because I can restore locally from that snapshot if my backup environment is compromised. But again, this is dedicated for disaster recovery, and it shouldn't really replace your backup solution that you're using currently.
Yeah, I'll jump on top of that too, just as being one of the customers. I'm like, I've utilized Azure Site Recovery, I've utilized Veeam with it. We use all those different platforms there. I know as far as DR and compliance and your insurance provider, one of the main reasons we love working with PBG here is I need the third party to test. I need the third party to tell me that DR is working. Because when, God forbid, that issue should ever happen, the last person they're going to trust is me saying I've done the DR, you know? So I'd much rather have that third party send me the email, the DR has been completed. The best part, it happens live while we're fully operational. We test everything and they let me know we're all thumbs up in any environment we decide to run. So I'll let you cover anything else if you wanted to wrap anything else off, Paul, or otherwise I'll move over to my section.
Nope,
One thing I just wanted to highlight before we pass it over to Mike is the big advantage here over a lot of other products is when you purchase Nutanix, whether it's on E-rate or you're just purchasing it, you get DR out of the box. So what that means is you're not having to buy any additional licensing. So in Mike's case, he had a secondary cluster, his old cluster. And when we went to his new cluster, what we did was we set up replication of various VMs that Mike wanted to make sure that those were covered for disaster recovery. We didn't touch on it. There's also cloud capabilities with Amazon. You can move your workloads back and forth between the school district and Amazon via the cloud. And there's other various ways we can do that. That's all I just wanted to cover.
Those are very good points, definitely.
All right, Mike, over to you.
Okay, I get my own slide and everything. Look at that. All right. So some of you may or may not know me. My name is Michael Estrada. I've been in tech and doing this since about 2000. I actually got into this career completely by mistake. I was a laborer and I was really just looking for air conditioning. And that's how I ended up in doing IT. But I'm a gamer. I loved it. I loved the networking aspect, so I took off from there. Some of you know me already from served on school boards. I've worked with private education, public education, municipalities, emergency services. I'm currently working with South Plainfield School District. I'm a founder of my own company, Security U. I'm a board member of Vendetta. I'm also NJ GMIS member, so thank you for them for hosting today, and also a member of the NJ GMIS CERT team. So if you guys have not heard of the NJ GMIS CERT team, just because I love doing multiple things at the same time, I just posted that into the chat there for you. So you do not have to be an NJ GMIS member to take advantage of this, but I would definitely recommend becoming an NJ GMIS member for all the other aspects that you do get from there. But you also can go on this site and become a CERT Response Task Force member if you'd like to. So if you do, God forbid, have an incident in your area, you can reach out to NJ GMIS and get a bunch of extra hands should you need it for the CERT team. They work at your direction and they would just love to be able to assist you. We always want to help out all the other municipalities and districts when we know something's happening. So this is now a way for them to help you out. As PBG said, I've been working with them for quite a while now. I think our Nutanix here, when we went and checked, was The PO was issued in 2009, and it's been installed since 2010. So that thing has been running for over 15 years here. And Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Was it one of the first ones installed in New Jersey?
So it was the first one installed.
All right.
I verified it was the first one installed in New Jersey, and it was the first one installed in SLED. So when we started with Nutanix, they were a $30 million, $35 million company. Today, they're $20 billion. So you can see. So yeah, Mike, you had the first one. You had the Gen 1 Nutanix installed.
Yeah, one of the main reasons I bring that up too is that speaks back to when Paul talked about resiliency. That thing's been rocking and rolling for 15 years. And I think in that entire time, we had one stick of memory be a problem and one hard drive be a problem, which is rock solid in anything I've ever seen. I think when I was talking to Scott, why do you recommend this? Once again, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you said something about throwing these things out of helicopters and bringing them by in Humvees, and they would work instant setup, as opposed to a Dell, which would be in pieces, right?
So part of the reason Nutanix has been so successful is when I initially discovered them, they were in something called, I guess, stealth mode. And that's where the company is very quiet about what they were doing. And this is when I was working for the U.S. Army Future Combat Systems, which is their advanced weapon systems that the Army is building. And what they did was they put Nutanix in a Humvee, and they had a flat screen for a general, and the general could watch troop movements. They also did it for the U.S. Army and the Marines, so that they could jump out of a helicopter, drop the Nutanix out in the jungle, and have a data center up in 20 minutes. You can't do this with any other product today. That's why the DoD is deploying it all over.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I definitely, it just goes back to that resiliency piece. I bring it up again because we are now not on our second, but our third instance of Nutanix here. That original, still rocking and rolling, but right now it's just a digital playground for us, so we can do whatever we want with it. They know over here at PBG I like to blow things up, and that gives me my environment to do that. I will say we did probably blow a few things up because that third generation was running versions of AHV that it is never supposed to run. We had it upgrade, I think, all the way up until last year. We were able to get it to take updates, probably 10 years past it's supposed to take those updates. And to the PBG guys, I believe that also helped get you some jobs, right? Because you had places that were needed to run in that outdated platform. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've had our share of making things work in a pinch, and that's our company slogan. We make IT work. It's been that for a long time. So the flexibility that Nutanix gives us and the resiliency allows us to be able to walk away from our own data center that's running Nutanix, trust that we'll stay healthy, and be able to help our clients when they need something up and running in a pinch.
Yeah. So the other thing I just wanted to say, if anyone has any questions during the entire time, feel free to throw them in the chat, raise your hand. We'll see and be able to call on you. But I know I just wanted to give it a little bit more about my environment here. So one of the things I was going to say that I loved about Nutanix too is anytime we're doing any updates, we have to update nodes. You can correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology. If I'm updating nodes, cores, things like that, all of it happens live while we're running full production. So here we run everything in-house. I know some people have started to move everything outside. For the schools that are on here, we're running our SIS system in-house. So that can't be down for even a second. For municipalities, they're running a lot of things at the court and the PD that are on there that can't be down. They can do all migrations and updates live while we're in full production, and we don't even see a blip. So when they tell us something has to be done, I just tell them, go for it. I don't even worry because I know it can be done in the background. And a lot of the times they just pre-schedule it with me. And we know it's going to take place on this day, and they just give me the thumbs up that everything's been completed afterwards. I didn't know if you guys wanted to go over any part of your process that you usually deal with that with customers.
One thing I wanted to highlight with customers is the first thing that they ask, and I'll turn it back to you guys, is the first thing they ask is, hey, I'd like to do this migration in the summer. And we tell them, whether it's a township, whoever it is, we don't need to do this migration in off time. There is a slight period where we would have to do downtime. And what we do is that's when we actually have to finalize the VMs and the migration over on the Nutanix box when we've migrated them from the old environment. But we've had clients call us and say, when are you guys going to start the migration? And Paul has told them simply, we've already completed the migration and they didn't even know we did it. So we have done this. We have done this for 15 years. Paul has built a really good process for completing this. Our team has really hardened itself because we have so much experience with this that the migrations are pretty much seamless.
I can add on to that even one better, Scott. So I have so much trust in this working. We did not only the installation, but the migration live within the first week of school. So we had students coming back, teachers coming back,
Yeah.
new Nutanix being installed and migrating live while we were doing it. And there wasn't even a blip. So that's how much confidence I have in the system here and how it works, and also definitely PBG here. One of the things I wanted to speak to too was those who might be worried about if you're still running in that VMware environment and swapping over to Hyper-V, or AHV. Definitely don't swap to Hyper-V, right? So moving over to AHV, as soon as Broadcom came out with that and started raising the costs, we were instantly, we were ready to abandon ship. But these guys maybe feel very comfortable in AHV since we had a secondary node to play with anyway. We moved right to AHV on that secondary node, used it to play around, and in actuality, it's almost the exact same thing. If you could spin up one in VMware, you could spin up one in AHV. AHV just gave us the additional capabilities of the files system, the flow system, which we're so anxious to move towards right now. So if there's any questions about that migration process or how that goes, feel free to throw that in there. The third-party DR, I think we already covered that, where you're way better off having a third-party company handle your DR for you just to tell you that it's good, that it works, that your backups are working, that you can fail over from one cluster to another. Because I really don't think the insurance company is going to trust you when you say that, yeah, it works great. It's just not right now for some odd reason. So the last one is Microseg. For those who are not already doing full network segmentation, which hopefully you're doing a little bit of network segmentation, especially for those who are in the schools, you have thousands and thousands of students who should probably not even be touching an internal network, right? Majority of the time, they just need internet connection. So cut them off from that internal. And when you think about it, most of your staff as well. But then as far as on the Nutanix box, even with the servers, why are certain servers talking to other ones, as Paul said here? We run our SIS internally. We have our web server out on the DMZ. We have our database on the internal, and we want to make sure, even though they're operating on the same clusters, only certain traffic is passing. I think one of the greatest parts of Flow is being able to put all those rules in place and put it in that monitor mode, which I'm sure any technical people are familiar with in other products, and see what would be blocked, what would be dropped. So you can see all your possible pain points before you actually run into them and you turn it on. I'm sure there's stuff that'll still happen down the road, but the visual aspect of Flow makes it really easy to find those things, hopefully before something happens. So I didn't know if there was anything else question-wise that might come up, especially from any schools or municipalities about the product. But I'm here to answer anything you might have about my environment or working with PBG.
I saw one question. I didn't know if we answered it. Someone had asked about third-party backup solutions. I can take that. I mean, we use a various set of third-party backup solutions, anything from Veeam to Druva to Rubrik. So we've had many clients who've had Rubrik, and we've migrated or set up the backup for Nutanix on there. So Nutanix has taken a foothold in the market. So many of the backup providers now have support for them. So if you have, when we come and look at an installation for you, we can discuss what options and what your requirements are, because not every backup solution is equal. One last thing I wanted to highlight too is for townships, this is the last thing, is for townships and schools, if you have limited resources, we have something called Tier 1 support where we can help you manage your Nutanix and other parts of your environment if you'd like us to do that. And as part of that, we do all your security patching and we do all your validation of your environment. So we'll do quarterly health checks, we'll do security patches, all of that while you're operating, and you won't even notice. That's the last thing I wanted to highlight. Paul, I don't know if you guys have anything else.
I'll add to that too, though, that we've been a tier 1 customer here at South Plainfield for as long as we've run Nutanix. And while it's, do we have the expertise to do it? Do we have the capability to do it? Sure. But we're also trying to do 10 million other things in our environment. So if I can offload even a portion of that work to someone else, right? 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome, right? So it's definitely manageable for them to do it and not for us to do it, to get that time back, and the cost is minimal. All right, unless we have any other questions at this time. Go ahead, John.
Yep.
No, I was going to say, are you folks finished with your presentation?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that about wrapped it up on our end, John.
Okay, so we'll open it up for questions for Scott, Anthony, Paul, and Michael.
Yeah, I see you have one there from Bill. Do any Nutanix customers, do any customers run a Nutanix standby site? If so, can you speak about that in terms of cost and benefits?
So
I'll let Paul talk about that because he's got a lot of expertise in that.
So by standby site, I'm assuming you're talking about that in relation to DR. There are a couple ways to do this. You can stand up either a cluster that can handle all or part of the workload from your primary site, but you can also stand up something called a robo node, which is a single node, usually a 1U block. So that's a common setup for a smaller environment that may say, hey, I just have a single digit small amount of workloads that I need to spin up in a DR environment on a standby site. I don't need to spin up everything. Works great for edge environments. So if we have, for our commercial clients, banks just need a few VMs running at their branch locations. Great, that's a perfect use for a robo node. The other benefit too is whether you're running a single node or a cluster for your standby site, your DR site, you don't have to run the same licensing there. Nutanix offers an edge licensing model, which is really a per VM license. And it is something that can reduce your cost if you have, a dozen, 2 dozen, 50, 100 VMs here, but you only need 5, 10, 20 VMs spin up in a disaster. Let's just license those VMs only and have the hardware set to be able to run that workload. So there's a lot of different ways and a lot of flexibility, I think really is the takeaway here, to make sure the right sized solution works for you and also comes in under your budget. So that's something that a lot of townships and school districts have used by setting up in another building, or some have said, you know what, instead of running this in the cloud and paying cloud subscription costs and VPNs and everything, I could just rent half a rack in a colo. It doesn't cost much. They take care of power, they take care of cooling, and I just need a couple U of space for my cluster, a UPS maybe if I really want to, and my switch, and away I go. So there's a lot of options to discuss there.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. So here, luckily for us, we've been working with Nutanix for a while now, so we were able to utilize our old nodes to be able to run as a DR environment there. But we do actually replicate off to Azure as well, so we use that as our, I would say, hot site, because it could spin up momentarily in seconds. We do go over into multiple different NAS solutions, but I think one of the things that you guys probably run into often, what happens, if they have a server environment, they're looking to replace it with Nutanix, can they utilize the existing server environment as that DR solution? Does it have to be another Nutanix?
So it depends on how you want to set things up. We have had clients that decided to keep their environment. The server hardware still works, right? The storage still there. They can, maybe the hardware's not supported, but they can run licensed software on there and have the ability to run the hypervisor that they had previously. Another point I want to mention is that cross-hypervisor DR is a advanced feature that Nutanix does support. So we have some clients running AHV on one cluster, ESXi on another for various reasons, but they can still do disaster recovery between them and replicate those ESXi VMs to AHV or AHV VMs to ESXi. Now, in that scenario, yes, you would need to be running Nutanix as the operating system, but again, it's your choice of hardware. So if you have hardware that is validated to run AOS, that's something we can repurpose. But typically when clients see the low cost of the NX series hardware and how many years they can get with it, they just move on and repurpose that hardware for DR, backup solutions. There's a myriad of ways we can find uses, and we actually encourage that, and that's one of our methodologies. Can we make the full use of what you have on-prem now together with Nutanix before having to look at buying anything else?
Perfect. I see we have another question in here from Bill. Do you ever have issues importing OVF templates into the AHV platform? If I remember myself doing it, I don't think you run into that issue, but you let me know.
Sure. So it's usually just a matter of compatibility. AHV is a KVM-based hypervisor. So most of your proprietary Linux appliances, virtual appliances, will be compatible. If they are not compatible, most of the time they can run. It's really just a question of, does the vendor provide support for that? So in Prism Central is where you would upload those OVFs. Usually importing them and trying to deploy is not a problem. It's a question of, does the vendor provide official support for it? Most of Cisco's platforms and most of the major players have AHV validated virtual appliances, just like they would be for ESXi or Hyper-V. If it's not already, then I'm sure it's in the works. I could tell you just as a statistic to help bring that point home, I was told from Nutanix that I think it was 90% of every node that they sell from distributors comes with AHV. So that tells you almost everyone running Nutanix is buying Nutanix to run a hypervisor is choosing AHV. So if that virtual appliance that you have isn't validated on AHV today, it probably will be very soon.
We've also worked with Nutanix. We just assisted, and Paul took the lead on this last year with Extreme Networks to help them to get their products validated on AHV, because they were in the process of working a $100 million deal, and that client said that we've got a lot invested with Nutanix. Your solutions need to work on AHV. So we worked with them to achieve AHV validation for Extreme Networks.
That was a historic time for us, because we're big fans of Extreme Networks for switching and wireless. That's who we sell when it comes to network. And obviously Nutanix is our leading virtualization solution. So being able to have both worlds meet together and help them work together was a great experience for us. And again, same path. We got their appliances working in our environment, so we were able to work with the dev test team at the Extreme Networks and show them what we did, and they could certify it and make it officially supported. So it was a win all around for everyone.
An area you didn't speak to, Paul, which is the current technology flavor of the day, is artificial intelligence and Nutanix. Does the Nutanix boxes have the compute power to support an AI environment?
Yes, you actually took one of the teaser I was going to throw out there. We are talking about Nutanix EnterpriseAI at some other venues, but I want to bring it up here to mention that EnterpriseAI is a big and hot functionality of Nutanix, especially outside of the North American market right now. Yes, you can run large language models directly on the Nutanix. Obviously, you would want to have GPUs. Nutanix has the only drop-in product in the market, which is something unique. What that means is you probably already have someone in your environment that can manage servers and virtualization, right? And you likely have someone that knows how to interface with AI and feed that data and manipulate it. So Nutanix can put NVIDIA GPUs in the cluster, drop it in, and then your server admin can manage the Nutanix virtualization cluster and present that large language model interface to whoever is manipulating the data. And it ties in with Hugging Face, it ties in with NVIDIA's marketplace. So whatever you need to run is available on-prem. And there may be a few reasons why. Obviously, you can run AI in the cloud, you can run it from as a service, but perhaps for security reasons, for PPI, for whatever data you're working with. You don't want it up in the cloud. You don't want it publicly accessible. You want it on-prem. Or perhaps you just want to control cost. You figured out what your use case is. You don't need the sun and moon and the stars. You just need these 3 small language models to do what you need them to do. Let's allocate some capital expenditure, get it on-prem, and now your costs are controlled. So Nutanix EnterpriseAI, they are integrated with a lot of the leading AI companies, and that's something we can definitely, if someone wants to learn more information about, we'd be happy to do so. But it is something that is talked about both at the county and the township level, and especially at education as well, universities and K-12s wanting to offer that for their students. So there's a lot to talk about there, and thank you for bringing that up, John.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was going to say in the education field too, we see a lot of it and wanting to integrate with it, especially bring it in-house. As you said, the amount of PII that's there. It's not something that we want to generally farm out to outside, but a lot of the administration, let's say you even have something, you're having an issue with a kid, you want to quickly get that kid's data, then you want to quickly get the grades, then you want to quickly know, well, what about the other kids in the class? Do they have the same grades? Okay, now how's that teacher been over the past 3 years? Just something like that are reports that would take 5 minutes for someone to run, then you go back and tell them again, and then another 5 minutes for someone to run, and the administrator wants that information like now. So if they could have that all integrated into the LLM and be able to speak to it naturally, that's a life changer for them.
And it also makes the IT administrator jobs a little easier when, again, you have that AI cluster, your server cluster, your DR cluster. It's all in that one Prism Central interface. You can run inventory and manage and upgrade it, or have us take care of that for you. And because it is that straightforward, we're able to provide that service at a lower cost to our clients. So it makes it easier for them to be able to justify us managing it, and it keeps everyone safe and secure. And it's, like I said, it's just a win-win all around. This is why we are so enthusiastic about making full use of the Nutanix platform.
Yeah, it makes it easier for us too. You're taking, our DBs usually get requested for those reports, right? So now they don't have to deal with that. So that's great. One thing I just want to go over, because I know we did it with my install. For those thinking about it, is there any power constrictions or something that you need to worry about if you're going to put a Nutanix in?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. We highly recommend, and in some cases, it's actually a requirement for 208 volt power. It is a best practice for all Nutanix nodes, except for the very smallest ones. But as these become more compute dense, especially if you're running GPUs, that power requirement goes up. So if you only have 120 volt and you don't have 208 volt in your data center, you don't have C14 plugs, that's something we also specialize in that we'd be happy to help you to get set up. And it is actually a benefit for more than just the Nutanix. Most of your power supplies and your servers, switches, firewalls are auto ranging. So moving that over to 208 volt does have benefits that we can discuss in another time. But definitely that is something to keep in mind, as well as network speed, right? 10 gig is the requirement and really the best practice when it comes to uplink speeds for the Nutanix cluster. But every Nutanix we've been installing the last couple of years has SFP 28, which means 25 gig uplink capability. And there's more too. And there are low cost ways to be able to do this in the data center. I know for those of us who've been in this industry for a while, 10 gig has been the gold standard, and anything beyond that seems prohibitively expensive. That has changed, and we'd be happy to have conversations to show that.
All right, to the audience, we're about at 15-minute point on this presentation. If there's any questions, I'd encourage everyone to ask them now so that Paul and Anthony, et cetera, and Scott could provide answers to your questions.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Great presentation.
Okay, so
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I
Thank
think
you
that
guys for
wraps up
having
the
us, too.
question portion. Yes.
So that wraps up the question portion. If there's anything else anybody would have, again, John Tugman, and as Michael did, and I will again throw out a plug for NJ GMIS. good organization, as you witnessed today. We'll provide these coffee sessions on a regular basis. We have our tech conference annually in the spring, which is a well-attended tech conference. PBG Networks was there. Nutanix was present at our conference, and a sundry of other technology providers that you can interface with and receive information about their products, et cetera. So I'd encourage keeping an eye out for the advertisement of our tech conference, and encourage everyone to attend that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Paul and Anthony and Scott and Michael and see if there's anything else anyone wants to add.
No, just to wrap it up very quickly, thank you, John, and the
You're
NJGMIS
welcome.
team again for giving us this platform to really dive into solutions, as we mentioned in the beginning, to hopefully drive advancement for all public sector and government institutions. That's our goal, to help you and position things that are either bleeding edge or new, or will just generally advance everybody forward in the right direction. So thanks again, and we look forward to having additional interactions with everybody, as you mentioned, on the other events, both towards the end of this year and into next spring.
Yes. So with that, I want to thank Paul, Anthony, Scott, and Michael, of course, for a informative presentation. And with that, unless there's other questions, we'll wrap it up.
No, thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
You as
Okay,
well.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good one, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.